Welcome back to the talk with Bafana Phalane. It's been a week. South Africa is slowly getting back to normal. Today I'm with Palesa Mofokeng. We will be talking about education. So I hope you've been having a good time with your friends and families wherever you are, Africa and everywhere in the world. Today we'll be speaking about education. Sister Palesa, tell me who you are and then we'll start there.
Hi Bafana, and greetings to the viewers at home. My name is Palesa Mofokeng. I'm currently studying towards my master's in education with Wits University. I'm also a sessional lecturer at Rosebank College, and amongst everything that I do is that I'm very much involved in a lot of youth empowerment activities, and yeah, that's basically that. Okay,
I called you today because I'm interested in this topic of education.
Yes.
You know, recently in South Africa we've been speaking about unemployment rate that is going up and up. But my problem is that people are talking about an unemployment rate without addressing the issues of education, because it has a direct impact on that.
True.
So why are we not all in school in South Africa? What is the problem with our education system?
What is the problem?
Yeah, the young people don't seem to be making it. You know, even those who did well in matric, they don't all end up in universities to learn. Let's start there before we get into the
what
education.
may be the problem? I mean, issues are a lot. I wanted to say issues are many, but literally that's actually the case, because before the classroom, there are issues that really affect a student or a learner, and they're based on the home as it comes. They're based on the society in which they come, you know. So sometimes we tend to not really look into those factors that really contribute to a child's overall success, but we only look at the end goal to say, okay, why are you failing? Why are you not doing well in the subject? And we just neglect everything else that comes with that, you know. Some kids, you know, they do come from your child-headed families. That's the other part. The other thing is distance from school. And the other part is, you know, a lack of food security as well, because everything else does come and boil down to everything else that happens at home. So if there's no support within the household itself, in a sense that there is that structure that can assist you in terms of you moving forward, then it does hinder your progress as far as education is concerned. So a lot of societal issues, they do contribute to a child's not really being able to continue with their academic academic schooling years, and that's basically that. Others is finance as well. So it's a lot of factors, and I can't really give a blanket statement to say kids are not in school because of this one reason. It is very specific to a student and is very individualized in that sense.
You've been active in the school environment, you know, in the tertiary environment, politically active, so to say. What are some of the challenges that you think, you know, if they are not being taken care of, they can be a problem, especially in the future of our country, especially in the education sector? What are some of the challenges you've met as a leader in a tertiary institution?
So true. So I was very much lucky or privileged to be part of the Wits SRC 2018-2019. So there I held a very strategic office, which is your academic office. So definitely I'm very much aware of the kind of issues that really contribute to a student's overall academic success, and those that hinder the academic success. So one of the reasons, number one, is lack of, you know, preparedness. So what you get to see is that our first year specifically is that they don't really have a full-on preparation as far as transitioning from high school to the tertiary sector. So that, number one, we don't really have that proper preparedness of our first year. So obviously you come into this space that you've never really been into, and you get to see a lot of things that are happening. And with you adjusting to the space comes with time as well, and, you know, talking to people in the progress. So that's number one, transitioning from high school to tertiary institution. The other part that is really a challenge within for students as well is finance. And you may think that, okay, there is NSFAS, you know, but be it as it may, there are a lot of issues that come with NSFAS as well, because there's a criteria that is applied. So obviously those who fall outside of that criteria then get disadvantaged in that progress, because it's like there's a cap But if you don't fall within that cap, then but you're still regarded as poor, then you can't continue with that part. So financial exclusion within universities it really is a contributing factor as well. The other part is that is also a problem that I found. I think is just really for students really reaching out for help. So you may have these departments within institutions where they offer student support in its entirety, but the other part is students really taking the initiative to really going and speaking to such people within this spaces so that they're able to get help. So those are some of the issues as well that come as a result of that. And then with the university spaces that people come and they want to explore, experience, experiment a lot of stuff. So obviously that hype as well does contribute to your overall academic success, because you want to experience everything. You want to know what is what people eat, where people are, where the vibe is. And with lack of discipline, that can really disadvantage you in terms of you progressing as a student.
So do you think that's a contributing factor, like to people who never make it in school? Some. Yeah.
Yes, some of them, it is a contributing factor.
Some of the dropouts.
Yes. So the other part that is also a contributing factor is what we call academic exclusion. So what that basically means is that, so at the end of the year, you get your results as a student, and then they tell, okay, fine, Palisa, during this year or as your final outcome comes is that you do not meet the minimum requirements. So obviously what that means is that probably you do not pass 50% of your modules, or based on your degree you do not pass your major, and that then hinders you from progressing. Or then you then have to repeat the year, or just you're not allowed to re-register. So those are some of the issues that really come as a result of that. And then obviously also the issue that contributes to the overall student success, I think, depending on where you are, it really is about you then not being as disciplined as enough, because the other part is with tertiary comes a lot of responsibility, because the assumption is that you are now an adult, therefore you can take care of your life and everything else. But with that lack of discipline, it does contribute to you not really being able to set your time straight, and thus being able to put or prioritize things accordingly. So I think in a nutshell that can be some of the reasons that really contribute to students not really being able to partake or just progress as a result. I'm looking at our education system in South Africa particularly. My uncle once told me a story about how people used to view education a long time ago. Like if you have done matric in a community, everyone comes to you with all their problems. They just bring an old radio for you to fix, because they believe you are educated. Is our education like that? Does it I'm not saying people should learn how to fix radios, but what I'm saying is does our education prepare us for the life's challenges? Does it do that? Because for an example, if you are in grade 12, then you need to maneuver life better than someone who never got to grade 12. I agree.
Whatever life brings to you, because in my understanding, education should prepare you for life. So I want us to bridge the gap between what we learn at school and what life brings us. I'm not necessarily tertiary university, but
matric
education as a component. Does it prepare, especially South Africans or Africans, if you are prepare us for life?
The answer to that it's an honest no on my side. Right?
So you think it does not prepare?
I don't think it does.
Is the problem an education system or education as a whole, or in a South African context?
That is also a two-way thing of answering the question. To say, is it the education system as a whole, or is it the South African education system? Because both they do play a role based on the whole history that comes with education and its purpose thereof. So those two questions, they do play a role in terms of the overall success of a person. Now I'm gonna contextualize this question in terms of the basic education, because that's where the basic part of it occurs, right? So I think from that level, actually there is not much or sufficient preparedness as far as us really as teachers, number one, and the curriculum itself, and those officials that really advise on policy. to say, are they really thinking of the child who is not just in Soweto, but also in rural Mpumalanga or Limpopo? Because what happens is we have a unified education system in South Africa. It's the same throughout. But is it relevant to a child in Limpopo? Is it relevant to a child in Soweto? Is it relevant to everybody within the country? Which is not, because I can tell you now that in 2017, 2018, I did my practicals in one rural school in Mpumalanga. And I was like, this is not the reality within this context. Yes, it is the CAPS document, but the reality here is quite different. So what I had to do as a teacher then was to try and maneuver the space in a sense that whatever content that they have, I must bring it to life in a sense that I must create the lesson in like physically, so they see that, okay, when I'm speaking about the concept of democracy, then I must, in the classroom, what I did there was now formulate a whole IEC vibe thing, and then they must have IDs, and then they must have this, and then have a voting station. So that, okay, fine. This
you
is what
did that in class?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I want to be in that class.
It's my class are very interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I try to think out of the box, because again, I believe that it is within those classrooms that we get to transform lives and just take your kids out of the textbook into the real world. So I think that's the one part that is really missing, to really just be textbook based and not really bring the lesson to life. So I did that, and I was like, okay, fine. In this case, this is what is meant by democracy. This is when you democratically elect your leaders. So in this case, they had to elect the class monitor. Okay. So they had to do that. And then the candidates had to come and just sit there and then manifesto vibes, come now and like, what does Bafana want us to be our class rep? And then Bafana speaks. So you prepare the kids as well to say, okay, this is what happens even during your elections, even during, any form of election. You must just understand that this is the concept of democracy. It is alive in South Africa, and you've seen it in your class as well. So at least we're able to apply that skill in the process. So my thing is, the curriculum as it stands, it is not as contextually responsive as it should be, because I feel like there should be more there is more actually that can be done. Number one, I think if you can just go back to basics in a sense that if you learn from other countries like your Finland, like your Japan, Singapore, yes, they're in different contexts, and obviously even the economic side of it is different, but we can take whatever we can take and then apply it in context. Okay. Because obviously the contexts are different. So you learn whatever you learn. Okay, you see that, okay, Finland is doing this thing very good. How do we then take that part of the education system and then apply it in context? Don't just take the whole thing and then just be like, okay, teachers come. Okay. That's what happens. Right. Even with the idea of ICTs in the classrooms and everything else.
You will tell us about the ICTs after the break.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Palesa Mofokeng. We are talking about contextualizing education, because education was written somewhere else. And those students were not there when it was written. So as a teacher, we are talking about that, because as a teacher, she's been in that space. Be with us and comment on our social media pages and ask us questions. I'll ask her those questions before she leaves. Thank you. Welcome back to the Talk with Bafana Phalane. If you just joined in, we are in Midrand in South Africa, and we are talking about recontextualizing education with Palesa Mofokeng. She's a lady who's been active in the education space. She's been a leader in a tertiary institution, and now she's also a sessional lecturer in one of the tertiary institutions in South Africa. So this topic belongs to her. She knows what she's talking about. So let's listen and learn. If you have questions, pose those questions. Palesa, we're back.
Yes.
I want you to tell me about ICT, because
yes.
COVID has affected us so much. And to my understanding, I don't know much about ICT, but it has to do with technology in the learning thingy.
Yeah.
Is virtual learning the future? I mean, I haven't been to class. I'm also a student at the University of Johannesburg. I haven't been to class, but I've been passing. So meaning there's no need to go to school. So tell me about that. Yeah.
Is it a reality? Is it happening? Is it the future?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, it is, because we want to transform the education sector as far as possible.
Okay.
But is it our reality in South Africa? That should be the question, which is partly not the reality. So I think in 2015 it was when the MEC of Education then, who is our MEC of Education now, Panyaza Lesufi, Mr. Panyaza Lesufi, that is, when he mentioned the whole idea of us now getting into the new era, where then we are saying goodbye to the chalk and talk, and there is this new idea that is coming of ICTs, you know, information, communications technology within the classroom, your smart boards, your tablets and everything else. So it came in that part, and I think as it stands now is that is not the reality in all the South African schools, and that is what I actually wrote about in an article about how COVID-19 then exposed the technological divide within the South African schools, particularly the townships and the rural schools. Right? So obviously it might be a thing of there's this narrative that is going around of the fourth industrial revolution, which personally I don't believe in, because there are a lot of issues around that, and a lot of things are not adding up. But I think
we can't start on fourth. I mean.
Yes.
There's some people who haven't experienced the first.
That's
and the
my
second.
thing to say. And again, the debate with the fourth IR is that it ends with the question, what is 4IR? Then you hear people copying and pasting and touching I'm like, don't. Be very contextual as well, because we really need to start talking about things that really matter and that are within our reach, the ones that we can see. So the future of education, yes, it is indeed highly influenced by technology, because the modern day classroom, not even ours, but the modern day classroom out there in the world, it is highly digital, and it is highly networked as well. So network meaning that it's no longer about just being within the space with Bafana in the classroom. It means that I can speak to somebody, to a Mary in America, and then just, you know, share ideas in terms of whatever we're learning, and as teachers as well, share those teaching practices in the process. So it is the future, but our reality in South Africa is that we are still in that progress of reaching the online space in its fullest. Okay,
now let's talk about the whole setup of education. You know, I went to school. When I was growing up, I was really a bright student. But, you know, it always changes when you get to the
tertiary,
not before. When you during your adolescent stage, you know. There is that change. It's either you start doing well or you start slowing down. But my biggest problem was I didn't know why I was going to school. You understand? Like I used to pass, but I was just doing it because when I passed, I would make my teacher happy. But I didn't know that I was doing it for myself. So when I get to the tertiary institution, before tertiary, high school, things change. You meet new challenges, and you don't really care about school. And that was actually the most important part of my schooling. So why don't you teachers teach us why we should go to school? Because I don't think it is important knowing the things we are learning at school. What's important is to awaken something in us. Hunger within us to learn and to be successful. We don't have that thing. We're just moving from one homework to another, and we don't even know why we are doing that. So please tell us why is that not part of the program?
So I think I'll answer this. I think this is a quote that was said by the late Nelson Mandela when he said, education is the most powerful tool that you can use to change the world, right? Now, again, in that very same phrase is that what kind of education, literally, well, is that a weapon that I can use to change the world?
Because education really is not a curriculum. Education is more than just that. Yeah, the things I remember that my teachers told me, it's not what they were teaching me from the textbook. It's that talk that they used to have with us outside of the textbook. And I feel like that's what builds us as people, you know, when you actually live the education you're teaching us. Because it's not 1 + 1 or whatever,
So my thing is, with that question in mind, is that yes, there is a form of knowledge that you must acquire for you to really be able to be relevant in society and just be able to do the basic, you know, the bare minimum. So in that regard, the education system wasn't really designed with us in mind. I'm just going to put it out there because how it is built up is that post my schooling years or post graduation is that I still remain unemployed. You know, the unemployment status is just rocketing
especially among the graduates.
You understand? And you ask yourself to say, how? But this thing it is meant to really empower me. So I think, number one, what really needs to happen in terms of us recontextualizing education is that it must be not prepare me to be employed, but I must be employable, number one. The other part is that I must be able to create wealth and jobs in the process. So not just me about going to a job and an office where then there's a boss within that department. It's really about making me employable and be able to create wealth and job opportunities in that space. So when we recontextualize education is that we really enable ourselves to really bring what is happening out there into the classroom. So if I'm able to see what I've seen on a day-to-day basis happening in the classroom, I'm able to then relate with what is happening. And us then contextualizing education means that we are then necessitating, you know, the opportunity for change in terms of pedagogy. And as a result, we are then, you know, stimulating creativity upon the learners as well. Because if I'm learning about something that I know, I'm able to think very wide and broad about the topic, instead of you just bring something that was, you know, inherited from a curriculum that is, you know, American-based. Yes, I think it is important that we learn about the global conversations as well, because we need to be globally relevant. But at the same time, what we're learning must be contextually relevant. So that's what I'm just saying in terms of education. So in terms of it being, why should you go to school? Why should you have that? It is important, but I think the restructuring should speak to the why.
Question, why,
So even when you talk to the policymakers, you say, okay, but are they really adequately answering the question? If we are then going to say we want to create a critical learner, you know, at the end of their matric, what are the knowledge? What is the knowledge base that the learner must have post that part? And is it speaking to the child's reality? Is it speaking to the child's environment? Is it speaking to the child's whole identity as a South African first? Because now we inherit these ideas and we just want to apply them in South Africa, and I'm like, this is not our reality. So I think in terms of really restructuring the whole curriculum is that it must be in a sense that it is much more purposeful in this regard to say, for us to really build that child that we want at the end of this 12-year period. And the other part is we must have a 12-year period instead of a 4-year plan, because what normally happens is when governments change, then we want to revisit and revise. But if we have a 12-year plan where we're like, okay, fine, from grade 1 or grade R up to until grade 3, this is the plan for this group, right? And then you grow with that group and see at the end of 12 years if whether or not you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. Yes, it's good to revise and just have those back-to-back chats in terms of, you know, is it relevant, you know, having those workshops. But in terms of the long term, that the long term must be in a sense that it is up to the latter, not just pick and choose and then stopping and then revisiting, changing. I mean, from OBE to the next curriculum to CAPS, it's been on that an ongoing change. And I'm like, is it really relevant? Is it really helpful for us to just keep on changing if we see that is not working? Or should we just have a long-term strategy and just, you know, implement it in phases and see if whether it's going to work or not? So
I've read a bit about education and the setup, the whole setup of a classroom, people sitting in lines, was informed by the early industrialization, where they were teaching people how to be effective in
the workplace.
Yeah, in the workplace, in the new markets and stuff like that. But bringing the same system into Africa, where there were actually no industries like to inform that, and then you start, you know, it's like we are forcing something that is actually not part of us, you know. And the whole idea of learning is taking the world into some little mind out there. It's not following some program somewhere, because we don't see the world the same way. I mean, I can't learn about Macbeth in Africa and then you go and learn about Macbeth in London. We have different challenges. Our economy is different. Our social life is different.
I read what I like. Why don't we learn about that from a very young age, so that we can just, you know, assimilate whatever he had?
So that we learn about South Africa, because we are in South Africa. So that has always been my problem. But how it started, it was a brilliant thing for Europeans to start schooling system that way, because it was informed by their markets, it was informed by their economy.
And the agenda as well.
And the agenda, of course. Now you take the whole thing, you bring it to Africa. Of course, it came to Africa under different circumstances where black people were forced to take it that way. But now we are in government as black people. Could we possibly rethink that? For an example, in China, the business world informs the education system. That's why the kids in the classroom learn how to make cell phones, how to fix cell phones, because that is the current market. But now in South Africa, we're not learning about that. In South Africa, we're learning about different things that are not even different that are not even. We don't even have trees anymore, but we are learning about them because we're busy cutting trees. Now the new things in the market is technology. The new things in the market, but we don't learn about that. So, where are we going? Tell me, like, what should we do?
What should happen is, I think, like I initially said, is that we must go back to basics. I mean, if it really means that we are intentional about the kind of education system that we really want to see transforming lives, is that we must really start in the classroom. And I think the policies should inform this transformation. And if the policies don't really speak to the transformation, or they're just good and right but bad upon implementation, then it's just a waste of time. Why do we not have? And I think the other part is really, I think for one to be in a government official position is that you must have a degree. Is it? And I was like, is it just any degree, or should it be relevant?
It looks like it's any.
You know. Another part is cadre deployment. That is a problem within the government officials, because I like Bafana, and he's been a ground force for some, you know, few strikes, and then all of a sudden you want to put him as a Minister of Education. I mean, really, I'm not undermining the kind of work that has been done within the education system, because I think relatively there is progress, but there is more that can be done given the money that has always been pumped in and looted in the process, which is very frustrating, because when you get to see this thing, is that, like we said, is that we have black people in majority within government, but why are they not really driving this conversations and really this policies forward? Because they are at liberty to do that and to just dictate. I think if there's one thing that I'd be happy to be dictated on, is actually we need this responsive, contextually relevant and contextually sensitive kind of a curriculum, in a sense that we are able to produce, you know, a better generation going forward. In
Germany, after the Holocaust, after the Jews were slaughtered, it was a mandate of the government to put it in the curriculum, to learn the Holocaust. So that kids can learn the Holocaust, so that it is, no matter what happens in the future, it must never be repeated, because they had learned about the bad things, that the implications, how it affected us. Do we in South Africa learn about things that affected us in the past? Because I think that should also speak to the education system. Because if the education is an agent to change lives from where? Because I don't know what was happening before. Most of black people don't know why they're poor now. They don't know why they're. That's why they don't know why they should go to school. They don't know why they should get their lives in order. So why can't we, as a people, actually teach ourselves.
Tap into that.
Yeah, and let's speak about what happened to us. Why are we here? Why are blacks poorer than white people? I mean, that should be in the classroom. It can't always be during strikes and revolution. That should That should be about education. Yeah. And
you're really touching on a topic that I once had with when I was still in the school when I was doing my practicals is the question of just the topic around racism and all this different social classes and how they came to be and what's really happening. And it was so I'm an English and social science major, right? So history is really what I did as well.
Of course.
And you can understand that with me and my academic background and the involvement, you know, so you can imagine the kind of class that I should have, right? It's very transformative. We have liberating conversations. So it was a class of grade 6s, and at that time, I spoke about this blend, and I was like, you know what? We have this divide in society, and this is what happened. This is what occurred, and then in that very same moment, because it was a multiracial class, by the way, so I thought it was going to be very much welcomed because this is your reality. You're seeing the multiracialness, and you're like, okay, fine. How does this one come, and then how does So I was like, let me try and bring the conversation home because it's there. And I was told about how racist I am, right? So I'm like, if we are very much uncomfortable with having this conversations at this level, and we're not even prepared to have these conversations, because when I spoke to the HOD, he was like, you shouldn't have said that. And I'm like,
that's a black person?
Yes.
Oh,
come on. And I'm like, okay. Number one, I'm not going to apologize for what I said because I don't feel there's anything wrong with what I said. So should the parent come, it's fine. I'm here. I'll address her the same way I did in class. So my problem was, if we're going to have such uncomfortability in having such conversations in that year, I mean, we still have a long way to go. Because what should happen is education should literally liberate us in the sense that we are able to have conversations such as those, so that we are able to inform what happens post your schooling years, and then in that process we are able to be like, okay, fine, I can coexist with somebody who is a different color and race as me because I get to understand the realities that come with that certain culture. But we don't have that tolerance within the education system. It is just us hiding away and shying away from the reality. That is the problem. We are too apologetic as a system in South Africa. Like you said now, the Holocaust, like they were very unapologetic and very much, you know what, we are going to do this thing, no questions asked, because this is the reality. But with us, we're going to end up on Mandela on a surface level. And I'm like, and the other part is, was Mandela the only hero that we get to learn about? I mean, we have, I think in the social science, we have like your Muhammad, the Gandhi and Mandela. So, and those other people that come afterwards, but are they the only people that really contributed to the struggle and the freedom of this country? That's the other part to say. When you introduce this contextualize or very much relevant ideas and knowledge base within the education system, does it go to the latter, to the root, to say this is the reality and this is the truth as it comes? Because narratives are also part and parcel of this curriculum, to say we want to portray this certain narrative, therefore that's where it ends. And I think that's where the part is, to say we should be able to speak the truth regardless of who was part of it and regardless of who says it actually. So unapologeticness within our education system and intention in terms of applying strategic solutions to these problems that we're facing currently in our system is at the heart of this transformation within the education system as well. So we really need to stop being apologetic and just implement in a way that speaks to the reality of the South African child, so that post that they're able to freely, express themselves. To say, I am an African or South African, and I'm able to really embed and embody that which I've learned because it's part of my reality.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back to that.
No
ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Palesa Mofokeng. We're talking about recontextualizing education, because there is a problem with an education system that does not speak to the realities of our society. We should know why we are here, and we should know where we're going. If we have not learned that, education is useless. So wherever you are, please comment on our social media pages and follow us on our Facebook, and we are on channel 500 on StarSat. Thank you.
Violence and sexual abuse against children has become a major social challenge during the COVID-19 lockdown. we appeal to adults, parents, and caregivers to be kind towards children during this lockdown and beyond. Give children the space they need to engage with their reading and learning activities. Do not hit them. Do not yell at them. They are equally frustrated. We urge you to listen, support, and help the children to survive the COVID-19 lockdown. Report immediately any incident of sexual abuse. The Department of Basic Education. Every child is a national asset.
Feel the heat.
I love Adam Selman.
The girls are really thin. I think it looks very glamorous from the outside.
The life of a model in New York City.
There is such cool prints. So many.
You know, I'm buying this.
Look at me and all the selfie sort of thing. Honestly, I didn't really know that was actually a job. It just didn't occur to me.
Congratulations. Feel the excitement. Feel the heat with StarSat. Feel the heat.
Chicken portions are an easy way to feed a crowd.
I've just started to incorporate all my ingredients.
We're going to put this inside of a hot cast iron skillet.
You want to really fill up on great protein.
It's now time to sample the chef's dish. Look at this.
I know.
Like that?
Feel the excitement.
The chicken is on the spot.
Feel the heat with StarSat.
Welcome back to the talk with Bafana Phalane. I'm with Palesa Mofokeng. We're talking about education and how it should be applied in our communities. Wherever you are, this is a very important conversation because it should speak to the question of why we are doing it, why we are not doing it, and why we are studying, why we are not studying. You know, let's talk about that. So all of us, we are here because we have aspirations about the future, but there is education in between us and the future. So what is it that we should learn, why we should learn it? So I'm with Palesa. Palesa, let's go back to what we were talking about, you know, the social background of a society that should inform the education system. Because if I don't know why I should be better, there's no need for me to go to school and become a better person, because someone must tell me that where you are not supposed to be there, and this is what happened in history for you to be there, you know, and we must be taught why others are rich and others are poor, why a certain race is more prominent than the other race. So that should be part of our education system, and it should not be a racial conversation. That's a reality. So let's talk about that.
So in terms of the social context of education, I think we must also contextualize it in terms of the history of education. Because as it comes, or the history of our country as a whole, to say there was a time in our country where segregation was a thing, and as a result of that, certain things and certain rules then had to apply on certain individuals. So obviously, as that came, it meant that certain groups of people, particularly the blacks, had to be disadvantaged in that progress. So obviously, even to date, what we're talking about now, it is largely affecting the black majority of this country. So obviously, that's where the problem is, to say, back in the day, a black person would just be like, okay, yours is just manual education. You just have to learn how to education. Just learn that, and then because you must have a boss somewhere, and you must respond to that boss. So obviously, it is that same mentality that comes with the kids that are raised by that same generation. Because if I'm raised by a parent who is well educated and can really be able to inform me in a sense that I'm able to then just choose whatever career that I want, even if it's not a career, but it's what I love in terms of music, in terms of playing any instrument, and I'm then supported in that regard, and I'm able to then be very much relevant in terms of just being somebody in life, because there is that form of support. But what we're having in the black community is that it is all about going to school, but nobody really understands what it means to go to school, and why should, like you're saying, why should I go to school? Because, dude, this is not meant for me. So why should I continuously be reminded of I should finish my matric? I had a talk now with grade 12s at this one school, and then the other part is there is a lot of uncertainty as far as next year is concerned, and to say, should I really go or just go to university or any higher learning institution, or should I just take a gap year, rethink my life, and because this is not helping me. So my advice to such people is always that, you know what, it's very good to weigh your options, right? Apply, and in the same time, do try and, you know, so do some soul searching, because at the heart of it is also boils back to a person to say, what is it that you love? What is it that you enjoy doing? Because that's what's gonna bring that plate on your table. If you don't do it, if you don't do what you love, again, for the sake of money, it is a problem. So what I always advise people is that, you know what, yes, there is the education system that is out there. There is your TVET colleges and everything else. But I think at the heart of you really trying to curb the unemployment rate in South Africa is you doing what you love, because in the process you are able to then, what is this word? Have some form of income coming your way. And the other part is, if we are then, the hype is also we want to be entrepreneurs and just own businesses and whatnot. I think we are misleading the conversation, because we are not advising the young entrepreneurs to say it is okay to get a job while you're also doing what you love in the process. Until you're stable and well much informed and vested in what you're doing, then you can leave this space and do what you can do. So people looking out for those opportunities is very important, because that's when we are also aiding in curbing the unemployment rate in South Africa. So again, speaking to the society that we come from, the other part is, once we have people that have really made it in life, like made it, because this thing is very much subjective to say who makes it and who doesn't, to say go back to your communities and give back, contribute in any way that you can. If it means that you now have to bridge the knowledge gap between the schooling kids and your knowledge based on the varsity life, go there, take it, and go and transform the people, because that's what the philosopher King does. You know, you learn what you learn and you go back to your community and just go take that community out of the darkness that, you know, they're perceived to be in, so that that knowledge becomes liberating in that sense. So don't just keep your knowledge to yourself. Try and, you know what, just go back to your society and the community that raised you, and then just shed some light in that regard, because you know your story, you know your reality, therefore you are able to relate more, because it is much more personal to you now. So
I you know, I have a problem with people who go to school and never transform the lives behind them. For an example, if I went to school and I did grade 8, I'm better than many people. Why is it not part of our education system for people who are in an advanced grade to take it upon themselves to teach those who are still at the back, because that's the whole point of education. For an example, you know, when I was still at high school, our teachers used to call the learners from the advanced grades to come and teach us, and we would understand better than how the teacher, because there is that you know, the gap is not too big between, because they just learned now, and you know, at some not long ago they did not understand, just like we did. So I'm not necessarily talking about what's happening in the classroom. I'm also talking about how, the culture, how we should actually disseminate what we've learned into our communities and the people around us. Because sometimes you see people saying, I did my matric, but I don't have a job. And you look at the person, I was there before. I know nothing about life. You know, the only thing I know is the textbook that I can't even apply in my day-to-day life. Whenever we buy things from African foreigners, because those are people who can use their hands to do things. Meaning it was part of their education system. Even when the economy shuts down, people can be able to survive and support themselves. Is our education system, are we ever going to go that direction? Or, you know, let us appreciate how apartheid used to work. God forbid, I don't like that place. But their education system was informed by the context. That's why they taught black people how to wash the clothes and how to clean.
That is what they must do eventually.
Because that, because
you're preparing me for the future.
So why is our education not like that? You know, getting into class, learning about something that you know, you've seen outside. You know, I'm learning about this because from here, this is where I'm going.
There's high reliance on STEM curriculum and, you know, the mainstream curriculum in terms of people learning just subjects. It is a problem. why are we not, integrating sports as part of the main curriculum, not as extracurricular?
Yeah.
Because the word extra makes it secondary, and it being secondary means that I'm not going to do it because it's optional.
Yeah.
So the other part is these extracurricular activities should form part and parcel of the mainstream, such that I'm able to choose from sports, from the academic route, or just going to play any other sports or any other really skill, just learn something else. So my thing is we should restructure the education system in a sense that it does cater for the kid who is much more artistic and make it a mainstream thing, not an extracurricular whatnot.
You should be in trouble for not being, for not running in the morning.
Because if I fail maths with 20%, I'm in trouble. Type of a thing.
So if you didn't do your jogging in the morning, you should be in trouble.
You should be in trouble. If you do not play your chess for the next hour, you should be in trouble. It should be part and parcel of your reality, and you know that if I don't do this thing as well as I should, then there is some consequences. Obviously, corporal punishment is not really a thing in South Africa, but there should be some form of measures in place that are going to reinforce such behavioral outcomes, because we really need to start thinking about having your knitting schools happening within the classroom, not because there is an extra person or extramural activity that is happening. It should form part and parcel of that, so that even at home I'm able to just take my dress if there's a hole in it, and I'm able to do it. Knitting should be
that's where fashion designers come, and that's one of the biggest industries in the world.
You understand? So if I got that from grade 4, 5, 6, and I was able to choose from those different streams in terms of not just between history and science and economics, but also between do I want to be a visual artist per se? Do I want to be a musician? Do I want to be a drawer or an artist of some sort? That also should start from the basic part of it, to say at this point in time, let me then be given that advantage to choose from whatever industry that I want to be, so that I can see it happening within the school, not posted, because posted they need experience from me. Where am I going to get that if I didn't really get exposed to that?
From scratch,
So the other part is this thing of experience that is being preached everywhere when you're looking for a job, and I'm like, but are you really addressing the issue as far as our education is concerned? Because it is very limited as far as experience is concerned. So if you have that grade 4, 5, 6, 7 up to grade 12, I know I have some form of experience. That is experience. Not because I'm not within a job, then that is experience. No, experience as long as I have that awareness in terms of the knowledge that comes with it, the problems that come with it, the pressures that come with the industry. From that level of my education, I'm able to then be somebody that can really transform or even contribute positively within the country's economy. Because post-matric, if I did that knitting in school, I'm able to just do some clothes and sell them, at a very reasonable price. If I loved music, I know that my voice has been trained in a way that I can really, progress post these things. Therefore, I can use my voice to really speak for me, or to just pay the bills, type of a thing. Not for it to be just a specialized curriculum where I can only do this when I'm in my tertiary years or some FET college. It should start from there, to say from that age, I should be able to choose from my sports, from the music part of it, to really broadening the curriculum in that sense, so that it is very much, it speaks to me even if I'm not an academic person. I can do my music and just choir there, because that's the other part. We are neglecting the Africanness in terms of the curriculum that comes with it, because as Africans we are very much vibrant, we are very much, there's rhythm in our body, and if I'm able to then really ensure that the culture that I'm learning, that I have, is embraced even within the classroom context. We won't really be having the 24th of September being just the only day where I celebrate my heritage. It is part of my curriculum. So also the teaching about the heritage and culture shouldn't just be a history thing. It should be a mainstream thing. You see? So everything else that we've been neglecting or having regarded as extramural anything should be part and parcel of the mainstream curriculum, so that kids are able to choose and they're able to then learn what they love in the process.
You're touching a very important thing. For an example, a socioeconomic status of our schools and the country really affects the learners negatively. For an example, you get to sports, when you do sports, black learners, they only do running, soccer and stuff like that. Then you get to where actually people make a killing when money with the other sports, you only find white people only. Yeah, so there's no much of a competition, and it is part of their main stream education. So how do we address the issues of finances, socioeconomic statuses when it comes to education? Because that also should speak to how the education is being given to us in the rural Eastern Cape or KZN. And
the other part that we're also having, which is a problem within the education system, is that we have a white people thing, a black people thing, an Indian thing. Just accounting Indians. Chess.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with really, what is this word, with you trying to identify with a certain sport because, or a certain career, or a certain anything, because you fall within that group. But you're also limiting an Indian who wants to do some form of anything that is African, right? So this boxing mentality is a problem because we are boxing each other in this box and this little world that we like, okay, everything else should be, if it's not a white people, if it's not a black people, that is not a black people thing. So please don't tell us about that thing. So I think the mentality needs to change in a sense that we really make it normal for us to just, like I said, to just have the mainstream activities within the education, because if they're normal and they're implemented across, then we won't have such discrepancies in terms of the numbers that come with the sports to say this race is more likely to be here. So we are, in that way, we are changing the narrative, and we're also including everybody else in the space, because the other part that is also happening is that we are excluding the differently abled learners in the process, because if I don't see somebody that I can really identify with within that sport, and I'm like, probably this is not for my people.
Of course,
but if it's within the mainstream education system, then I'm like, I've seen this in my schooling sector, and I was able to really know and understand that it is okay to coexist with people that look different than me, that sound different like me, that even have went to different life challenges than me. So if we can normalize that part of saying we can all do it as long as you put your mind into it, and you can just do it. And then even for that differently able child, is like, you're also welcoming them into the space to say you are also welcomed in the space. Again, the other part is we are not really including the differently abled kids. You're deaf, whether you have some eye issue or you have you're living with there is not much inclusion in that regard. Instead, we have specialized schools for them. My thing is they should be part of the mainstream education,
because we are all going to be in the same
somewhere in life
and same
somewhere
community.
In life, we're going to meet. And I'm like, if we don't paint that reality of the world out there, it means that we are not preparing our kids enough for the world out there. And this is what I always say. Sometimes when I speak to my aunt, is that I'm like, I don't feel like you're preparing your child for the world, because you always give them what they want, and the world does not give you that.
No. So
that's always what I tell her. I love this child, but you are not preparing her for that part. So same mentality should go to the education system to say, yes, there is this narrative that has been put around to say this is for this race, but if we can just bring everybody in one space and prepare teachers, even teachers, we must prepare them in a sense that they're able to also deal with a dyslexic child. Don't just make it for a specific school, a specific context. No. It should be uniform in that sense, because I think at the heart of us transforming education, we must make it as inclusive as possible, because that is our world and that is our reality going forward.
That is very profound. I mean, you can't have specialized schools. Of course, we have different learners, but we should make our schools be relevant to everybody. That's why we take stairs out, so that people who can use their wheelchairs, because eventually we are going to live in the same,
transform the spaces to speak to the reality.
Eventually we are going to exist in the in the same communities and stuff like that. Okay, we are now at the end of our thingy. But yeah, let's we have 3 minutes. Let's talk about let's talk about, you know, the outcome, you know, the end goal, where when you look at through the windows of the future, you know, what do you see? What should happen? Because we're talking about education, but so many things come to my mind. The issues of for an example, you give everybody tablets and we don't even have data or Wi-Fi. Understand?
The crime in the townships.
Yeah, they take them.
It from me,
they really take them.
Who should pay for it?
Yeah.
Me.
So we are speaking about education, but we are talking about development, infrastructure development. We are speaking about police service. You know, so many other things are involved. Yeah. So when you look through the future, what should the education system be like?
Very profound, very interesting question. So for me, if the education system can say that from grade R to grade 3, we are basically teaching morals, that for me that would be good. Yeah. From grade 4 to grade 7.
Teach learners to be good.
Yes.
To behave well.
Never mind the maths and the life skills.
And as a mainstream education.
Yes, mainstream.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we have such a dysfunctional society today and a lot of entitlement within the youth is because of the very negligence that we gave to the moral compass of this country. Yeah. So that's number one. Let's just reinforce morality and, you know, being a good citizen. Yeah. Being a good human being, Ubuntu, that is part of our reality. How do we then practice that in reality from grade R up until grade 3?
Ubuntu as a subject.
Ubuntu as a subject, to say, actually, that's how we are contextualizing and making it relevant for us. To say, yes, grade R, grade 3, let's talk about morals, right? Yeah. And then grade, this is my vision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So grade 4 up until grade 6 or 7-ish, because we do have that grade as well, is that let's then speak into that extra. Yeah. We put it to the main.
Yeah.
Right, from that, not FET, no, from there on,
now.
Let me choose what I want to do, because if I want to become a hairdresser, have a school that is going to just give me the basics around that, so that even if I go home and my mom needs something with the hair, I'm able to do that. Yeah. So now what happens is, if I go home, the only thing that is happening is my phone and there's TV. Yeah. That is not relevant. That is not speaking to me being a socially responsive citizen. Yeah. So the curriculum should stop having this extra anything and just put it back to the mainstream. Yeah. And then with the coming grades, we then reinforce and re-implement and ensure that these skills are then, you know, engraved in the child, so that post that schooling years, yes, you're going to have your maths and your mainstream, everything else is good, but with other additionals, so that I'm able to choose in that regard as well. So that is my education system. That is very much ideal, but one day. Yeah.
Okay, Palesa, thank you so much for coming through, and we've learned a lot. There's so many things I've learned that I didn't know what education, just knew what education is being in class and then Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we will have you again. There are so many other things that we could have spoken about.
True.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are on the Talk with Bafana Palani. We have come to the end of our program. We're in Midrand, Johannesburg in South Africa. We're on Starset, Channel 500. Palesa Mofokeng, she was talking about recontextualizing education so that it can speak to the needs of our communities. Wherever you are, please, these are conversations we need to have. Let's question what our kids are being taught. Don't just be at home and be satisfied with without knowing actually what your kid is learning at school. Scrutinize everything so that, you know, we can produce a society that can stand against the challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, stay tuned. We'll be together next week. Thank you.